Hi everybody, welcome to Chat and Craft with Lorraine. I'm just noticing that my camera seems to be backwards and I'm trying to figure out how to adjust this. My room behind me is appearing backwards. I don't know why, and I don't know if I can figure out how to change this. I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to move to this view for just a second and stop this camera and see if I can adjust this camera. Maybe this will work. Let's see. Okay, let's see if that's
better.
Yes. Okay. Whew. It was very disconcerting to see everything behind me switch around that way. I think the echo should be good now, Jan. It was just when I started that camera back up. Hi, Jan. Hi, Courtney. All right, people. Thank you for joining in. Sorry about that technical difficulty. We're going to do a little bit of playing with a 3D embossing folder today. So this embossing folder here is called Layered Flowers 3D embossing folder, and it is gorgeous. You will love this. It makes the deepest, most stunning impressions on your paper. So we're definitely going to make 2 cards. I'll see how long this goes, and perhaps we'll make a 3rd card with it, and using a couple of different techniques with the embossing folder. So the first one we're going to do, let me switch. Oh, I didn't even introduce myself because I was all messed up with the camera. Hi, I'm Lorraine from Chat and Craft with Lorraine. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I get flustered easily. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. So this is the card that we're going to make tonight. And I call this a split lay embossing folder because this is all one panel and there's no raised embossing. There's no embossing done on that section of it. So I'll show you how we do that. I'm using some Azure Afternoon cardstock. And you can score this with your scoreboard and put it in here and do the scoring, or you can score it on your trimmer. I'll show you how I'm going to do it on this. So I want a 1-inch space that doesn't have any embossing in it. And I want to just give it a little bit more definition with a couple of score lines. So I'm going to score this at 3 1/4 and at 3 1/8. 2 lines. And then I'm going to do it again at 4 1/4. And I'm going to go a little bigger. I want to be on the outside of that. So it's 4 3/8. Oh, that was 3 1/8. I don't know if I said that correctly. So it was 3 1/8, 3 1/4, 4 1/4, 4 3/8. Now on this one, I have the line indented. Can you see that? I think on this one, I might do it raised on this side. Just to see if that makes any difference or we like it any differently. So I'm going to do a little heat embossing. This sentiment is heat embossed in white. Hi, Martha. Hi, Melanie. And when I heat emboss in white, I use my white craft ink because that way if the embossing powder misses a spot, you have white ink behind it and it kind of fills it in a little more completely. So I'm going to put this on the right hand side, and I'm going to get between the score lines. And there is my stamping. Hi Joan, thanks for watching. And I'm going to sprinkle it with a little bit of white embossing powder. I'm going to turn my heat gun on to warm up a little bit. I hope that's not too loud over there. Okay. And now we will melt that. Let me just make sure I don't have any stray flecks of embossing powder. Okay. And we will melt that. Should melt pretty quickly because my gun is warmed up. There we go. Okay, so that is melted. And you can see our score lines that give it a little bit of definition. And now I'm going to try using my stamp and cut and emboss machine up here so that you can see how I'm going to line this up. Get some things out of the way. So when you use your big, thick 3D embossing folders, you can see how thick this embossing folder is. You just use your base plate or number 1, and then an embossing folder plate or number 4. This is thicker than a single clear plate. Okay, so this embossing folder, you can see embosses almost all the way to that edge. So I'm going to line this top score line up with the edge of that embossing and try to get it straight going across. And I can see through the embossing folder a little bit to try to get that nice and straight. So my paper is going to hang out like that, and I'm only going to put this over it so that it lines up with the edge of the embossing folder. And I'm going to run that through my machine. Okay, so that gives me embossing just on the top part of that embossing of that piece of cardstock. And you can see what a beautiful impression this folder makes. It is just so gorgeous. Now we're going to put it through with the bottom getting embossed. And you could do this with 2 different embossing folders if you wanted. You could use a more subtle pattern on the bottom, or polka dots, or anything you want. You don't have to use the same one. I'm going to, just because I want to showcase this folder. This folder is available on January 4th. It's in the new mini catalog. And I think it's one you're really going to want to have. Okay, I'm going to put this away for a minute. So there's the beautiful embossing on that. We have a sentiment, We have an embossed piece of paper. And now we're going to put that on a white card base. I use the thick basic white. That is a good pun, Courtney. It is impressive. I use the thick white for a card base because it's a little bit stiffer. Now you can see that putting this through the embossing folder makes it a little bit warped and bumpy. So I'm going to adhere it with some tear and tape because I want it to really lie on there flat. And I'm afraid those impressions, there's not a lot to grab onto where there's the deep impressions there. So I'm going to use some tear and tape. Okay. Oh, I said I was going to start using my take your pick tool to lift it because I just realized how much easier that is than trying to use my fingernails. Sometimes I'm a little slow to the new developments, Take your pick tool's only been around for 5 years or so. Okay. So I'm going to center this on my card base. And then we're going to make a little focal point over here. So on this one, I embossed a flower on white. I also embossed a flower on blue and used a little bit of white embossing or white craft ink on it. I'm going to show you how I did that on the next card. But I want you to tell me whether you like it better with the blue circle or with the white circle. Let's see what people think. And while you're telling me that, I'll show you how I embossed this little circle. Let's see. And get my machine out again. And you guys give me a vote on what you think. I'm going to open up my embossing folder. The part with the Stampin' Up! Logo, that's the front of your folder. And I want to get this flower embossed on my circle. This is a 1 3/4 inch circle. I used the circle punch. And I'm just gonna, try to keep that in the right spot. Can you see? I'm just moving it a little bit. There we go. I have that in the right spot. And now I'm going to emboss that. Oh, Courtney, I don't think you're difficult. You and Joan both have the same idea of matting. Oh, and MJ said it too. Matting the blue circle on white. So that's how I got the image on that circle. Isn't that pretty? Well, I happen to have a 2-inch circle punch right here. And a scrap of basic white. It's not quite big enough. Excuse me. I'm going to need to get a drink. All right, there's a 2-inch circle. Have some water. Okay, and let's see what this looks like with a bigger white circle underneath. That's very pretty. That's really pretty. I think I do like that. I think I might do a stitched circle under there, but for now we will do it that way. I like that idea. And I love the group input. Let's see if we can get this to stick. There's not a lot of it that's flat to stick on the white. And then we'll pop it up with a few dimensionals. And add a little bling, and this card will be done. When it's such a gorgeous embossing folder, it doesn't take a lot to make a really pretty card. I'm using the Iridescent Pearl Basics. I like the little ones. And I'm going to put a few around the sentiment and the circle. There we go. So there it is with the blue and white circle, and here it is with the white. So that's a really simple, pretty card. All right, now this next one I'm really excited to show you because this uses something that hasn't been around for a while. This is going to use the Brayer. Have you ever used one of these Brayers? This is a hard rubber Brayer. I have to tell you, it's not the Stampin' Up! New one because I ordered it, but it isn't here yet. And I got impatient and I couldn't wait any longer. So I'm just using what I have. I hope you will understand. All right. So for this one, we had to do, you know what? We're going to, well, I may have to wash this. If we get to the third card, I'm going to have to wash my embossing folder. So we probably won't get to the third card because I don't want to leave you to do that. So usually we put the cardstock in the embossing folder like this, and we run it through a machine. This, like I said, the part with the Stampin' Up! Label is the top. The flower is recessed on the top. Well, I'm going to take my Brayer and some ink. This is a nice, juicy ink pad. And I'm going to get ink all around my Brayer. And then I'm going to ink my embossing folder. And I've inked this one several times in several colors. You'd hardly know. You just wash it with water. If you feel like it's a little ink has dried in there, you can use some Dawn on it. It cleans up, no sweat. So here's one thing you want to remember with a Brayer. You're going to keep rolling it. Oh, I have a dimensional thing stuck to it. Okay, you're going to roll, roll, roll. I'm not going back and forth on the ink pad because that would not give me good coverage on my ink pad. So I'm just rolling it multiple times. This color ink you can't really see on the Brayer, but it's there. I'll show you. Okay, quite a bit of ink coming off. So you just keep rolling. I don't think you can really get too much. And I'm keeping these little rubber things up. They help it stand up without making a mess, but I don't want them to get in the way when I roll. So they're pointing up right now. And I'm going to roll ink on my embossing folder. So my flowers are recessed on this side. And I want to get some good coverage, even though my paper only goes in the center of that. Okay. So I'm looking at these flowers here now to see where it is that I want my piece of paper over this way. I'm going to close that up and I'm going to run that through my stamp and cut and emboss machine the traditional way. You put the hinge side first, going through, and I'm going to crank that through. And I want to make sure I get a good transfer of some ink, so I'm going back through again. Now, be patient. It might not look like too much right at the beginning, but it will look different. So you can see that there's Night of Navy ink. This is Night of Navy cardstock, Night of Navy ink. There's some ink in the background, and there's some ink that outlines the flowers. Oh, I should have shown you. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. I got so excited. So this is what the finished card will look like. It's really pretty. And this is the same card, but without brayering the embossing folder, just putting it through and using white ink. This one has the Night of Navy on it, and it really gives the flowers more definition. I don't know if you can see that in there. Thank you, Becky. But here's that flower again. I love the way some of it gets a little bit darker and some isn't. It's almost an ombre kind of look. All right, so now we're done with our brayer. I'm going to hope I don't get a lot. I'm going to put it over there so I don't put my arm in it. Now I'm going to take my white ink pad, and I'm going to try to hold it very level and flat and just lightly touch it on the top of this embossing. Okay, I want to get a little bit of white ink on there. And I thought my ink pad seemed a little dry, and I re-inked it. It might be coming out a little bit heavier, but we can take a little bit of that off. I'm going to very gently, just up and down. I don't want to smudge it, but I'm just going to blot a little white ink. Okay. So that gives just gorgeous, gorgeous definition to those flowers. It's so pretty. I think it looks even better in real life than it does on the card. So to make this, then I used a little bit of the Simply Elegant trim. I'm going to wrap a couple of pieces of this. Whoops, I like to go this way. Around. I think I need a little bit more to be able to tie a bow. Let's go around one more time. And scissors. I'll cut that off. I think the brayer will work best, Lori, on the 3D embossing folders because there's a lot of contrast between the recessed parts and the raised parts. I'm not sure how that would work on the others. You'll have to try it and let us know. Oh, I'm glad you guys like that. I can't read comments and tie a bow at the same time though. So let me do this. Oh, tying bows live is one of the worst things for me. I never have this much trouble. There we go. Tying a bow. And I'm gonna just spread those out a little bit. And this sometimes has a hard time staying tight. So I like to put a glue dot under there to kind of hold everything in place and just squish that bow right onto that glue dot to hold it. Okay. And then I did a very simple sentiment on this one as well, that Beyond Grateful and this thank you are both from the Charming Sentiments stamp set. I love this stamp set. Yes, Joan, I think you'll have to dig out your brayer. And just going to put a simple thank you on there. I realize we haven't put our mat on a card base just yet. I will do that. And then I'll show you the third technique and I'll tell you about it, but we're not going to do it because my embossing folder is a mess. I should have had 2 of those. All right. Again, this is a thick basic white folder, and I'm just going to put that on there. And that is, oh, it's just so pretty. Oh, you put Scotch tape on the back here. You know, I keep meaning to bring some tape down here, some Scotch tape down to my studio, and I forget about it because there is a lot of things on the back side that you could use it for. Good tip. Okay, we'll put this on and add a little bling. And again, the embossing folder really does all the work for you on this. You don't need to do a whole lot of die cuts or other fancy stuff. You don't need DSP. Oops. With all the recessed parts, I fall into those holes. There we go. And now we'll put this on here. And to go along with the silver trim, I'm going to use a few, my last few silver pearls from the Festive Pearls pack. Where should we put this other one? Maybe over here. And there you go. And there are the 2 cards. I kind of like the way that's curling around there a little bit. They're just gorgeous. This one has a little bit more white on it because I re-inked my ink pad. But they're really pretty. So the third technique that I was going to show you is also pretty easy with the same embossing folder. So here is the card that I made, and I ink blended a background, and I used, let's see, Orchid Oasis, I think, and maybe some Gorgeous Grape and Melon Mambo. And then I ran that piece through the embossing folder, and I have, I moved it over here. I have this sanding block that Stampin' Up! Used to sell. And then I just used the sanding block and sanded off a little bit of color, and the white cardstock came through. If you have white core paper, Stampin' Up! Sold some for a little bit. I don't know if it's still available or not, but the white core paper, you wouldn't need a blended background. You could use a colored white core paper and just sand it off, and you'd get the little bit of sanding. But it kind of gives it a distressed look, or the white ink look without the white ink. And then I just die cut the Feel Better Soon. So that's the other one. So Becky says, how do you keep the white pigment ink from smearing? It's so raised, and I'm using a light touch, and you could even just go up and down if you want, that it doesn't smear. Sometimes I do hit it with a heat gun when I use the white ink, because it does take longer to dry, being a pigment ink. But it's pretty thick, so, and it's sticking pretty good to this cardstock, so I didn't have trouble with it smearing. So there's the three, or the two techniques that we did. A split embossing where you leave a spot for your sentiment that isn't embossed, and then the embossing with a little bit of ink outlining the flowers and some white ink on top, and then the sanded one. So I hope you enjoyed seeing those cards. I really think you're going to want this layered embossing folder from the new catalog, Layered Flowers 3D embossing folder. And the catalog goes live on Wednesday. If you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be yours. I love to make cards. I should switch this. I love to make cards. I love to help people make cards. I love to send cards. So please, if there's a technique you'd like to see or some way I can help you, I would be happy to do that. I hope you all have a very happy new year. It is Monday, so have a good rest of your Monday night. I'm all confused on days of the week with all these holidays. Have a great night and happy card making. Bye-bye.